members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please keep standing. Worshipful, the Mayor of Chorley, Councillor Julia Berry.
Welcome everybody. Can you remain standing just for a short while? Thank you. First full council meeting. Welcome. Hope you think we have fun here. we do our best. I know it's a very formal meeting, but everyone's very kind and respectful, so it's great. Thank you. Before we start the usual proceedings, I'm sure you will all be extremely saddened to learn of the death of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We will now observe a minute's silence. Okay, thank you. You may sit down, thank you. I'm just conscious, I think we've started early. I think we're ahead of ourselves, but group leaders, can I invite you to say a few words? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And obviously, happy to say a few words on behalf of my group and the wider council about the sad passing of the Queen. Obviously, we will all have our views, whether you're a royalist, a strong royalist or not a strong royalist. I think none of us can help but to be impressed by somebody who has served the nation for 70 years through some difficult times, some good times as well, Madam Mayor, some difficult times, and at all times appears to have unified our nation, which is, as we all know as politicians, very difficult at times. But I think that's a mark of the Queen and how she approached the role, the fact that she was selfless, she saw it as a service and as a duty. She didn't project her views on others, she didn't have her own opinions. If she did, she kept them to herself. And I think that's one of the things that most people I've spoken to who have met the Queen got from her, that she was listening to you, she was interested in you, she wasn't trying to force her views and opinions on you. And I think as politicians we can maybe learn a thing or two from that. I had the pleasure of being with Councillor Molyneux, I think it was on the Diamond Jubilee, locked in Accrington Town Hall when she did a visit with the late Prince Philip. A very, very strange occasion. I didn't speak to her, the Mayor was shoved to the front, as was the right. Always the Mayors, the important ones at these kind of do's. But again, took the whole room with her, even though there was a very diverse cross-section of Lancashire society there that day. And I think we have to mark that, Madam Mayor. It's impressive when you think about what that lady had to do, the way she approached it, and we can just hope that we move onward in the future with a royal family up to that performance and up to that level of service. And on behalf of my own group, we mark the passing of the Queen, but we also celebrate the service that she did. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not really certain what I can add. That over the last few weeks, most elegant historians, the TV, the pundits, the nation has said, and even the world said about Her Majesty. I can only say one personal thing for me, and it was just a reflection, in that Her Majesty was born on the 21st of April 1926, the same day as my mother. And I do reflect that, barring a few hundred miles and a swap at birth, you know, I'm maybe in a different position. But not the case. But no, thank you. Wouldn't want the job. But very much around Her Majesty, that what she actually did for this country. And I think it's just that sincere reflection on right up to almost the day before she passed, she was still carrying out her duties. And she said that that was her role. That's what she was dedicated to do, to serve this nation. And I think she served it absolutely exemplary. You know, I think all these, you know, the statements that are coming out of Elizabeth the Great, I think they're all most appropriate. And I can only say that, you know, she'll be missed, sadly, by many, many people throughout the world. And we can only reflect on what she was. But, you know, Her Majesty's now gone, and so it's God save the King.
Save the King. We have some members joining via Teams, and members of the public are welcome to observe the proceedings on YouTube. And thanks to everyone for attending this meeting on Tuesday the 27th of September 2022. My name is Councillor Berry and I am your Mayor. Due to regulations surrounding voting, only those members physically present are able to vote. However, if members at home would like to contribute to the debate, please use the raise hand function on your iPad. For members in the council chamber, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. When you are speaking, please speak towards the microphone so that everyone can hear you. If anyone is having issues, please let Democratic Services know. Some basic housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Please ensure that any mobile phones are switched to silent. And if the technology fails, then I will adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue. Can I have the apologies, please? Thanks. We have apologies from Councillor Keith Hidden, who's on... Oh, sorry. Councillor Keith Hidden is on Teams. Councillor Heaton and Councillor Gray send their apologies. Thank you. Right. Now, I've come to the item 2, minutes of the meeting, Tuesday the 19th of July 2022. This item is for decision. Are there any issues to raise on the accuracy of the minutes? Is that a raised hands, Councillor Bradley? Okay, well, you're in a hurry. Right, proposed by...
You started the meeting early, Madam Mayor, I would like to propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of July 2022 are taken as a true and correct record. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So the recommendation are that the minutes of the meeting be approved. Can I have a show of hands for? Against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So the decision of the meeting is approved. The minutes of the meeting are approved. Item 3, declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? Thank you very much. I would now like to amend the order of the agenda by pulling forward item 9, which is the Armed Forces Covenant Overview, pages 43 to 54. As we have grand colleagues here, I've decided to bring this item forward, just their comfort really, and I do appreciate you all for taking your time out to come today. This item is for decision. Councillor Beaver, please can you present this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You'll have noted we have the standards here tonight, and may I introduce the people that are with them. First is Tim Day of Chorley District Ex-Service Association, of which we have Councillor Walker, who is the treasurer for it. Next to him is Mr Gwyn Gaskell, who is the chair of the Chorley branch of Royal British Legion. We then have David Gowrie of the Royal British Legion Standards. Ian Tomlinson, who is the Chorley Combined Service Breakfast Club, And we also have at the back of the room over that side, Mr. McFinan, who's the chair of that. Madam Mayor, recently, the Chief Executive, Gary Hall, signed the Armed Forces Covenant at the flag raising celebration, which commenced at the Armed Forces Week in June of this year. The report gives this report gives the background to the review and an overview of the Armed Forces activity. So, what is a veteran? A veteran is defined as anyone who has served at least one day in Her Majesty's Armed Forces, be they regular or reserve, even if they've been dishonourably discharged from the army, from the armed forces. It doesn't matter. We don't turn our backs on them. It also includes merchant mariners who have seen duty on legally defined military operations, such as some years ago in the Falklands. The Armed Forces Covenant, of which this is an overview. So, what is it? We've heard about it for a few years now, but I will bet there's more than a few people in this room who don't even know what it is, and that's what this is part of about. It's to tell you what it's about. The Armed Forces Covenant is a promise by the government on behalf of the nation to ensure that those who have served or are serving and their families are treated fairly in the provision of public and commercial services, and it recognises the sacrifices they make on behalf of the country. The Covenant isn't just simply a package of benefits for those that have served. Members of the Armed Forces community should not be disadvantaged in the provision of public and commercial services, I've touched on that, compared to those to other citizens, and that special consideration is appropriate in some cases, especially for those that have given the most, such as the injured and the bereaved. This support is provided in several areas and includes education and family well-being, housing, careers, access to healthcare, and financial assistance. The Covenant is a voluntary pledge. You don't have to take it. Chorley Council some years ago decided to start supporting Armed Forces veterans. Organisations may choose to sign up and demonstrate their support for the Armed Forces community and the principles of the Covenant. However, soon an extension to the Covenant called the Covenant Duty, which is already going through Parliament at the moment for ratification, will state that statutory duty for specific bodies and organisations, specifically in the areas I've just mentioned, such as healthcare, education and housing. Charlie have started doing this some years ago. Very soon, the government is going to turn around and say, you will do it. And we are well ahead of the curve at the moment. By signing the Armed Forces Covenant, an organisation demonstrates its intention to support the Armed Forces community and provides the organisation opportunity to be recognised by the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme. So what's the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme? It encourages both private and public sector employers to support the defence and to inspire others to do the same. It consists of a bronze, silver and gold award for employer organisations that pledge to demonstrate or advocate support to the defence and the Armed Forces community. And Charlie already hold the silver award and have done for 2 years. Over the past 5 years, I've had the pleasure of collaborating with John Hill, who wrote this report, and he's the Community Engagement Officer for Health and Wellbeing Team. John has applied for and received both the bronze and silver awards, and next year is looking to apply for the gold award. The silver award is recognised in recognition of the Council supporting the Armed Forces Reservists and Cadet Associations by affording 2 weeks paid leave and extra unpaid leave should they want to attend military training, courses or annual camp. We have 2 options tonight. The options are, I'll start again. A consideration not to apply for gold was considered, but was discounted, as it didn't. It would have adverse effects on the Armed Forces community and the upcoming statutory Armed Forces Covenant duty, which I've touched on. Practical examples of how Chorley Council has supported veterans is at para 18 of this report. The risk relating to the council not doing anything about it is at para 24, and the criteria for the employer recognition scheme, and what Chorley Council has achieved in support of the armed forces community, our future, the aims and objectives can be seen at annexes A and B. Madam Mayor, the recommendations, and I have absolute pleasure in proposing that the Council is requested to reaffirm Chorley Council's continued and committed support to the armed forces community via its armed forces covenant. And secondly, to agree that Chorley Council considers its pursuit of the Defence Employee Recognition Scheme Gold Award in 2023. Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beavers. Would you like to second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Beaver for all the hard work that he's undertaken since being elected, and also the work that the organisations do within the room tonight. I'm very happy to second the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Sorry, I'm a bit weary tonight. Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Can I invite members to make any comments, because this item is for decision? Councillor Derbyshire.
I'd just like to say, as part of the forces community, as an ex-army wife, and my children have grown up in the system, and also been in education. I'm involved with a lot of children who actually suffer a disadvantage by being in armed forces schools, not because they're lacking ability, just because of the actual change itself, the number of changes and moves that families have to make. And that is often, people don't understand when children find it very difficult to make new friendships. They put up they put up a guarded defence of everything being okay, but it's the underlying issues that are the problem. And actually, I think that's something as well that we need to be supporting a lot more, recognising. And I think a lot of it is done through like the Ever Six, that children are at a disadvantage. And the armed forces is part of that, but not quite to the same standard. I think it should all be the same standard, because there are distinctive disadvantages to being an armed forces child. Apart from the community and the camaraderie that it gives, that is lost when those children come back to UK, because they're often on postings on their own and isolated from other members, and it really does affect them. So all the things that they have when they're actually in the armed forces community needs to be reinforced when they're back in the UK and actually in local communities. So I'm really happy to support this motion tonight and actually say it is very much needed, and from an ex-wife's point of view, and certainly my children, you ask my children where they come from, they haven't a clue. And they're both intelligent children. I'm going to say my daughter was born in BMH Hanover. My son was born in Ford in Preston. But they've got no base, they've got no grounding. I come from Chorley. They don't. They don't know where they come from. And that actually is the truth about a lot of forces families and a lot of wives who have moved, which community they belong to. I was born here, but I haven't been there for 30, 40 years. And that's a consideration that needs to be done. Just imagine if you and your families were moved every 3 years, every 5 years to new locations, and how difficult that would be to settle in. Moving home is one of the most stressful things you can do, moving schools, moving lives. And I really do believe that if Chorley put this forward to get the gold standard, we can then work on that and involve more of the communities that are involved in the armed forces.
Thanks for your wise words, Councillor Derbyshire. Would anyone like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Collins.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And got to say on behalf of the Conservative Group, we were 100% behind the backing of this. I did mention a little earlier about my mother. And my mother was a chairman of the Local British Legion Women's Section, and my stepfather was the men's chair. In fact, she actually was awarded the gold pin for fundraising in the Poppy Appeal. When I say that, it was over a period of time I actually saw the difficulties that members of the armed forces suffered. And that was either discrimination in getting jobs, or discrimination from people, or even the mental health that they actually suffered. And I think anything this organisation can do to break that down, to support the armed forces and the veterans, can only be a good thing. And certainly we will back anything to get the gold standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Does anybody else wish to speak? Thanks very much. Well, I'll draw the debate to a close. Obviously, we've got the proposal with recommendations at paragraphs 2 and 3. Can I see a show of hands for 4, please? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Can I just pass on my thanks for coming this evening? You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. Safe journey home if you wish to retire. Thank you very much. Right, we've come to item 4, mayoral announcements. Many of you will have also heard of the very sad news of the deaths of former councillor and mayoress Nora Ball and former member of staff James Thompson, who was the Deputy Director of Finance before leaving the council in March this year. We will now observe a minute's silence for Nora and for James. Thank you. You may be seated. Can I ask group leaders if they wish to say a few words? Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We appear to be having more and more minute silence these days. I don't know if it's a sign of the times or what's going on, but yes, Madam Mayor, I think we need to take the opportunity to remember Nora Ball. I know her funeral is currently being arranged, so obviously it's quite fresh news, really. Nora had been known to many of us as the foil to Ken in Coppell, the polish to, I suppose, his opposite, whatever that was. But yeah, differences politically, but as a person, you know, was always chatty, was always kind, was always supportive of Chorley as a borough and as a council. So Nora will be missed, I'm sure, and you know, our thoughts are with their family at this point in time. Also, Madam Mayor, I think we should remark on James Thompson, who was, well, we've been in administration for a long time, a key cog in Councillor Wilson and Gary Hall's departments in terms of churning out the budget and doing all that work for us, and has been taken at a very young age, which is a bit of a shock, really. You know, you expect some people to pass, but you don't expect people of James's age to die. So our thoughts are very much with his wife and his very young children, and a terrible time, Madam Mayor. So, our thoughts are with them. Thank you.
Councillor Bradley. Councillor Collins.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. All I would agree with what Councillor Bradley said. It's almost every meeting, and I don't know whether it's an age we come to, but I think with James, that proves that's not the case. I think I got to know Nora very well in the sense of when, for those with a long-distance memory, when we were in control of the council with a very small majority, that we went into coalition with the Lib Dems, with Ken as the deputy leader, so we got to know Nora very well. And what you could actually say about Nora, you're right, Alistair, that she was the polished diamond to Ken, you know, and she was such a lovely person. That was the thing, you know, you could talk to her any time. And I know that while she was a councillor, she started to suffer ill health, and that went on for many, many years. And I think it's always sad that when a nice person, you know, goes, and they've certainly taken a nice person when they've taken Nora. From James, you know, absolutely staggered when I heard this yesterday. You know, I mean, he's one of those people that was so cheerful, so helpful, you know, with a good career ahead of him. And to be taken at such an early age, and, you know, our condolences and sympathies go out to his 2 children and his wife, is very much, it makes you should think just how life is so precious. You know, that you can be taken at such an early age. So the message is, you know, live life to the full, and rather sadly, he never got the chance.
Thank you. I just have further announcements around my charity events. I have a number of fundraising events planned during my year, including a Thanksgiving dinner and dance on the 24th of November, a Christmas tea dance on the 7th of December, and my charity ball on the 10th of March. And further details about the events will be circulated near the time. The Chorley's Got Soul event in aid of my chosen charities, Inspire, which had been, including Inspire, which had been due to take place early this month, is being rescheduled to the 14th of October. Thank you to everyone who's bought tickets supporting that event. I'd just also like to say thank you to everyone who supported me while my sad time in jail on Friday, where I had to raise bail. Unfortunately, I escaped, so I didn't spend much time trying to organise for bail. So I'm very grateful to everyone that did contribute. It was a fun experience, and so the town certainly did us proud, really, when Darien House sort of took over one day. So thanks again. A very worthy cause. Moving now to item 5, which is public questions, but we have no questions submitted. So we can swiftly move on to item 6, which is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and Task and Finish Groups, pages 15 to 18, and to follow at pages 123 and 126. This item is for noting. We find it, Councillor Walker. Please can you present the report of the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Panel held on the 27th of July and 22nd of September, which came to follow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the members to approve the minutes of the performance panel held on the 27th of July and the 22nd of September? And on that note, can I ask them to look at, I can't see, sorry about that. On the meeting last Thursday, we were very concerned about the number of projects that are on hold. And can I ask that the directors and the cabinet members make sure that these projects that are on hold are now looked at and make sure they are completed during this municipal year? Thank you.
Does anyone wish to comment? All right. Do we have a seconder for the reports, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that report.
Okay, right. The item is for noting, but is anyone wishing to make comments, further comments, or ask any questions? Thank you, Councillor Boardman.
Just a very quick question. It's paragraph 11 on the report. It is in relation to the grey bin subscription that's gone up from £30 to £32.50. I just want to know if the cabinet member is in the room today, can just explain what the situation is with the missed bin collections at the moment, and do they see that income going down next year? Most of the residents that I speak to have had to make a trip to Chorley Tip most weekends to put their garden waste away. So an explanation of the missed bin connections would be appreciated.
Okay. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. From a procedural point of view, obviously it's no Overview and Scrutiny Committee report, and so questions should be put to the Chair of the ONS Committee, but I'm happy at this stage to, in answer to Councillor Boardman's question, the problem with the grey and blue bin and refuse collection in general is staffing issues with FCC that are being dealt with, and regular reports are submitted to myself as an executive member, and where appropriate financial penalties are given. We are on board, but unfortunately there is very little we can do at this moment in time, because it's not just FCC who are experiencing staffing difficulties, but probably every shop and business that I come across are experiencing staffing. But we're on track in terms of the number of collections, but the main thing is to identify and communicate with ward councillors and residents when there is orders. But if they're not collected on the scheduled day, they will be collected the day after.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bradley, do you wish to speak?
I do, Madam Mayor, and there's a shortage of HGV drivers, as many people are aware, across the country. There's a shortage of many staff across the country. And I know there may be members in this room who voted for Brexit. I hope they had a good trip abroad through the summer, spent lots of time in a queue to get abroad in the new regulations, but this is another symptom of the lack of thought the government did when they voted for Brexit and pushed Brexit on the British people, because unfortunately this is one of the symptoms of it. So if that's what we want to see happen in the future, because we cannot get the staff. So if Councillor Cullens wants to see the prices increase for collections of waste over future years, this is the way to carry on going, because an important part of our workforce has gone elsewhere in Europe and voted with their feet. This is not, though, a matter for over the Scrutiny Committee, in my view.
Anybody else wish to be controversial? Okay. We're now at the end of the discussion of this item. Please can we note the report? Do you need a show of hands for that? Okay. Item 7, Governance Committee, pages 19 to 22. This item is for noting. Councillor Platt, please can you present the report of the Governance Committee held on the 3rd of August?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask councillors to note the Governance Committee minutes from the 3rd of August 2022?
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for this report? Thank you, Councillor Clifford.
Pleased to second that report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Again, I will now invite members for their comments and to ask any questions. Do we have any questions, comments? Okay. Well, that's short and sweet. Please can we note the report? Thank you. Item 8, General Purposes Committee, pages 23 to 24. This item is again for noting. Councillor Beaver, please can you present the report of the General Purposes Committee held on 7th of September?
Madam Chair, we held the committee. Actually, I didn't realise I was speaking on this tonight, so I've prepared it. That's the first I've heard of it. But on the night, Councillor Bradley, could you take that, please?
Excuse me,
I put it to the council.
Councillor Beaver,
We
thanks very
accept
much.
I propose the report.
It's fine for you just to note the report. Thank you. I just wish to have a seconder for that report.
I do that, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hilton. I will now invite members for their comments and to ask any questions. Like I say, you can refer yourselves to pages 23 to 24. We're now at the end of the discussion. Please can we note the report? So the report is noted. Thanks. Item 10, Chorley Economic Strategy, pages 37 to 76. This item is for decision. Councillor Bradley, please can you present this item?
I'll do my very best, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Obviously, members of the council, we are in a post-COVID world now, and things have changed. So it is only right that we look at our economic strategy for the next few years to set an agenda for Chorley and for business in Chorley that this council can help with. We won't do business in Chorley. That's what business does. What we are here to do is to facilitate our businesses being highly successful. Through the COVID period, most of our economic team was involved in helping spread the grants that came from government out to business to keep them going and keep them afloat. And that was a lot of work to administer that, Madam Mayor. And through that time, like many parts of the council, the team has changed, people have moved, people have reevaluated their lives and moved on. As part of that, we're therefore looking at the team as well. So we are recruiting at the moment business advisors, business support and all the rest of it, and reinventing the team under the new structure that the council has put in place. And the pandemic had an effect on business. It has changed the way that people do business. Far more business is done remotely and online. There is still a requirement for face-to-face, and there is still a requirement for office space and commercial space, which this council has stepped in to provide. But what we need to do, Madam Mayor, is provide a clear ambition, as it states in paragraphs 5 and 6, about what we think Chorley requires by listening to that business community. So, as it says in the report, last November, just as we were coming out of the sort of pandemic, before there was a bit of a blip towards the end, but we were coming out, we had an economic summit up at Strawberry Fields with a lot of the businesses from Chorley and South Ribble in the room, and listened to what they needed. And what they overwhelmingly were consistent on is they need space to operate, whether that's factory units or office units or retail units of a modern and a viable nature. They need skilled staff, because they're all short of staff. Going back to the conversation about the bins, they're all short of skilled staff, although there is a pool of people who are not economically active in our borough, but they are not able to take up those jobs that are on offer because they haven't got the right skills, or they haven't got the jobs aren't in a way that they can work with. And then the third thing that they're short of, which all businesses are always short of, is money. Because, Madam Mayor, it's no surprise the banks lend to people with money and never lend to people who are just setting off in business because they are risky ventures, because that's the case. So what we are trying to do, Madam Mayor, is listen to the business, reflect what they want us to do as a council, which generally is to get out of the way and let them do what they do, help them find that space, help them get a more skilled workforce, and if we can, get some money for them, which is very difficult because Chorley's never really getting a lot of money from government because we don't have the need. But what we can do, we will do to help. Paragraph 10 documents a lot of the information around how we develop the strategy, and a lot of the information at the back of the actual economic strategy itself in the appendices on pages 55 to 65 is very interesting for those members to have a look at, which documents a lot about the demography of our business in Chorley. Chorley is typically a lot of smaller and medium-sized enterprises. We don't have anybody who employs more than 300 people, for example, so we're not reliant on one large factory closing and throwing everybody out to work, or one business moving out the borough. We have lots of smaller operations. If you look at the types of work that are there, they're detailed. I was quite surprised that construction was as high as it was. Then the other one was professional and scientific and technical support. We have a wide range of businesses. We've almost got every kind of business in the borough, and they are generally, as it also details, thriving. We have a large number of start-up businesses, so we've got a large number of new businesses, and most of those new businesses are very successful. And I would hope, Madam Mayor, that some of that is because of the work that this council has done to support those businesses. So much so, on Friday night, I and others, members of the office team, were at the EVA Awards in Blackpool, which represents women in business. It's an award specifically for North West women in business. Chorley was probably the fourth best represented nominations after Liverpool, Manchester and Blackpool itself. We were above Preston, we're above Blackburn, we're above Wigan, we're above all these other places because we go out there as a town and work and do business. And it was a delight, Madam Mayor, to see those nominees. We just didn't win enough. We did win a couple, but we didn't win enough awards. So I obviously complained to the organisers, and I hope we win more next year. But we have a pipeline of those businesses coming through, and every year the businesses thrive because we try to help them along a little bit. They do what they do, and we will help them do what they do. The strategies, it's no great secret, Madam Mayor, as it says on paragraph 15, those strategic priorities are that space, those jobs, getting our people employable and getting them, because it's a well-known fact, Madam Mayor, that one of the biggest indicators around people's health and well-being is being in work. It's their housing, it is their work, and that adds to their wider well-being. A sense of purpose in life, the money to do things in life are very important. And as we all know, it's no fun on benefits under this current government at all. So what we're trying to do is get our people into work. What we're trying to do is get our businesses successful, to share that prosperity around, to keep it in Chorley, Madam Mayor, to quote Totally Local last night at the town team, to recycle that money many times before it leaches out of our borough into the pockets of the ultimate bosses. We've tried to keep the strategy simple. We've tried to keep it able to be understood by everybody, whether that's business owners or their employees or what have you. We are currently doing a series of roundtable meetings with different sectoral businesses. There was one last week around the construction industry. There's one tomorrow around businesses, particularly around the cost of living issues and the green agenda. and they will carry on through the rest of the autumn. And we're doing that jointly with South Ribble because it's a fact that economically we're quite linked with South Ribble. Our populations are very similar, so what works in Chorley works in South Ribble. It doesn't stop us occasionally competing with South Ribble because we still need to, because we are Chorley Council. So what we need to do, Madam Mayor, though, is to grow the wider economic value and activity in Lancashire as a whole, and Chorley and South Ribble, alongside our partners in West Lancs and Preston, are probably the economic driving force of Lancashire, and we want to see that multiplied through the rest of the county. So happy to take any questions. I'd like to pay tribute to Vicky and the team who put this together. Like I said, Madam Mayor, to me it's a statement of intent, and we'll see where it goes. It will be under constant review, because these documents always are, but happy to take questions and comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Bradley. Can I invite Councillor Wilson to second?
Yep. Happy to second, Madam Mayor. I don't think needed to add anything to what Councillor Bradley's already said. It's an exciting new strategy. Let's hope we can have it implemented and support the good work that we've already done in terms of supporting jobs and skills and making sure people have got somewhere to work in the borough.
Thank you. Can I invite members to make any comments? Councillor Boardman.
For not debating last time.
You
so,
did indeed, you did indeed.
I got your point. A couple of points to make on the document of the report. Yeah, very colourful document, full of information. Tells you a lot of things about this borough. A few questions though, and I've got a couple of follow-up questions if that's okay, Madam Mayor. First one. Chorley Borough looks like we're pitching ourselves against our neighbours, and I have no problem with that personally. We are all looking for the same businesses, we are all looking for investment. So would Councillor Bradley say that we are competing with our neighbours in West Lancashire, Blackpool, the Fylde, South Ribble and other areas in Lancashire?
Okay, Councillor Bradley.
As Councillor Wilson says, we are competing with everybody across the country, so yes, we are. But I think we also recognise, though, Councillor Boardman, there is a travel to work area in Chorley. So our travel to work area generally extends as far as the other side of Preston, the other side of Blackburn, Wigan, Bolton to Manchester corridor, and a little bit of Wigan to Liverpool corridor. So there is little point in just transferring where those employees in Chorley locate. We'd love them to be in Chorley, but sometimes we have to accept that we can't have everybody in Chorley. What we need is a mix. So it would be far better to attract overseas investment, which is very difficult to do. It would be far better to attract other regional employment from outside our travel to work area, which is more easy to do. And what the easiest thing in the world to do is to pay a few more quid to coax somebody to come across the border. That's not the game we're in, because that's not going to give us benefit to our residents, because all it's going to do is move their jobs 3 miles or 5 miles either direction, because if we do it one way, they'll do it the other way. So while we don't rule it out, and we are in competition because it's a competitive environment out there, we would rather compete with our near neighbours to attract the right businesses into the right place. And to be quite honest, given the attributes that Chorley and South Ribble, Preston and West Lancs have been on the M6, M61, good motorway network, mainline rail stations, we don't have to compete with them. What I'm sometimes more concerned about is the fact that there is a lack of investment in East Lancashire, which means that population from East Lancashire has to travel down the M65 to come and take jobs in Chorley, which then denudes our population from taking advantage of those jobs. But we also have a duty by working with the colleges, the schools, etc., to upskill our resident workforce to take advantage of those jobs, because if they don't, employers will take whoever comes. Very interesting recently talking to British Aerospace, they have a 40-year forward plan, and that 40-year forward plan shows a requirement for employment, and they're not just looking in Lancashire, they're not just looking in the northwest of England, they're looking across the world to recruit. And what they're saying to us is, get those houses where these people want to live, and we'll bring them into the northwest of England, into Lancashire and into Chorley and South Ribble. And because what we need to attract those people is good housing, good schools, good facilities, good services and what have you. And to be fair, they recognise what Chorley does. Many of them live in Chorley, the current managers live in Chorley, they live in the Ribble Valley, they live in South Ribble and Preston. So they know what we're trying to do, but they say you need to do more of it, because they can see that they have a pipeline for employees for the next 40 years. A bit scary really when you think about it like that, but there is definitely that. And if they can do it, we can bolt on lots of stuff around that, because there's a whole supply chain around that. And the cyber centre and all the rest of it, big opportunity for Chorley on the back of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. To come back on that, yes, it was more, the question I was asking is why would a business from outside the area, from a different part of England or from Europe, etc., choose Chorley over our closest neighbours? That was mainly where I was coming from, not about robbing Peter to pay Paul and having people working across boundaries. That wasn't where I was coming from, so just to correct that point. So it's really why we choose Chorley. That's basically what I was getting at. And there's one thing, after reading through the documentation several times, I'm struggling to understand. There's no mention in here at all of Chorley vying for or bidding for being part of the new investment zone that Lancashire are currently bidding for at the moment. Within that, I believe, after reading the paperwork last night, borough councils can actually come forward and partner up with tier authorities, Lancashire, for instance, in order that we can put an investment zone into Chorley, which would give us some footing and some merit over our nearest neighbours. The benefits of these investment zones are very similar to what we had with the enterprise zones, which came through about 2010, 2012. We've got one of those in Lancashire, and that's up at Salisbury. And British Aerospace, they really do benefit on the back of that. So the question is there a desire for this council to be part of the new investment zone strategy?
Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just go to your first point about why choose Chorley. And it's not us saying this, businesses say this, why they chose Chorley is because they like the place. It's a nice place. It's got all those things I mentioned, good schools, good housing, all the rest of it. And not to blow our trumpet, they also say it's because the council reacts and is agile and listens to what we say and does stuff for us. And they also say that other councils in Lancashire don't do that. So that's why they choose Chorley. We give grants, some small grants, more than a lot of other councils, although a lot of them are copying us. So that's not as much of a... We give them the Red Star treatment with if they're big employers. Mr Hoyle comes along and helps them out as well, and which is very useful because as the MP and as an influential MP these days, he helps with trade issues and all the rest of it, which is his job as an MP for Chorley. He's a great advocate for Chorley. So we need to just keep doing that because what they say is Chorley Council listens to us, Chorley Council is responsible to us, and that's why they choose Chorley. On the issue about the EZs, IZs, whatever they're called, there isn't a plan at the minute. It was announced last Friday. We don't know where they are. We don't know what the rules of engagement are. You might think enterprise zones have worked well. Samsbury's done okay, I think. It's been a bit slow to get going, and I don't know who to blame for that, but I'll blame County Council, because I always do. Blackpool Airport, I don't think did very well on the back of it, and Wharton didn't do massively great either. So I think the jury's out. The esteemed David Burrow, who I always like to quote, on Friday said, enterprise zones don't do anything but take people from the neighbouring areas and concentrate all the issues there and denude the surrounding areas of that enterprise. And it doesn't work. I think hashtag factor right policy at the back of it. But that's how, you pay your money, you take your choice. I would be interested to see what the detail is. I would look forward to a more to the enterprise zone with unrestricted planning, but I suspect members in the room might have a problem with that. I think Chorley has a lot of issues already about unrestricted planning that we can't control. It will be interesting to see what comes forward. But that's the problem with announcing policies you haven't thought through, in my view, and I look forward to the detail when it comes.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just to go back on that. So the question is no, you're not looking to... well, it would be nice to have something in the strategy to even mention it, about working with our local partners. Okay, I'll get to the point. I wasn't asking you, Councillor Bradley's question. I'm still not telling you. So, just to highlight a few benefits of being in this investment zone, if I was looking to move my business and someone was offering me 100% discount on my business rates and 100% enhanced allowances for grants and subsidies, why would I choose Chorley when they weren't available?
Okay, Councillor Bradley.
Because you'd just be moving next door, Councillor Boardman, because you have a business, you're not going to move it lock, stock and barrel somewhere else because you're where you are because of who you are and where you live and where you want to be. So therefore, why would you get that in that spot and you're not allowed it over there? Sure, the best way is to make it a bit more equitable. And this is a theoretical conversation because we don't know what's actually on offer here. So what I think the government should be looking at is to devolve business rates down to the people who know what they're doing, i.e. the people in this room, and not keep directing from London that what you're going to do is create a lottery based on what postcode you're in. as to whether you get 0 business rates or 100% business rates. That's ridiculous. What we should be doing is supporting all business, otherwise you'll get people migrating to those enterprise zones. Some areas need it. If you're in the mess that like Teesside was, where you've had half your industry took away, you're going to need that. But Chorley's a slightly more mature landscape than that. That doesn't mean it won't work in Lancashire, it doesn't mean it won't work in Chorley. What we need to see is the detail of what is in that and what the good sides and the bad sides are. Because as Councillor Burrow pointed out, and he's a wise old bird, he's been around a few years, it's not all it's dressed up to be on the tin. And therefore, oh great, we've got 0 business rates, but that means somebody else is paying twice as much, because you still need the same money, because the magic money tree that used to throw at us appears to have reappeared in a different location.
Thank you. Councillor Vickett, you've been very patient. Have you got a proper question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I've never had a proper question, I'm a bit thrown by that. It's almost like Councillor Holgate's return to the role. As much as I enjoyed that debate, I did actually have a couple of questions on the strategy, but I did want to reflect that I was a little disappointed by Councillor Bradley's comments a few minutes ago on the collection of the bins, because I was having this conversation with Councillor Lowe outside, as have a number of other members, that I think a lot of members have been quite supportive of this council's inability to collect the bins and explain to residents there are problems and be supportive about it. There haven't been political attacks. There's no leaflets out saying Chorley Labour can't collect your bins. It would have been an easy thing to do. So I think just the way the question was answered and the reflect of Brexit was hoisted on people, recognising 57% of Chorley voted for it. I think if we want to hold a line as an organisation of we're trying to solve this and not get into a political dogfight, maybe those comments are not conducive to that. But my view on the economic strategy, I'd love to have a long discussion on this, but the bit I wanted to pick out was on page 39, where it talks about the number of big opportunities, paragraph 12. It says local centres, building on the recovery by supporting traders across the borough and developing a clear plan for the future of the town centre. And I think when we get into the strategy on page, bear with me a second, page 45, where we talk about the opportunity for that section, the preamble talks about, you see, increased footfall in service centres, which we have a few around the borough, but the opportunity only references the town centre. Now, I recognise the town centre is the big driver for our economy, it will be, but if there are opportunities in a few of the service centres, we should look to explore that a little bit. I, like Councillor Bradley and a number of others, sit on the town team. It's a very eclectic mix. We have some interesting conversations. And it's good that this council engages with its traders in the town centre to understand what's happening and what they want. I'm not advocating we should do that with every store out all across the district, but have we ever sat down and invited the business owners in the key service centres that we have to come and have a conversation every 6 months, once a year, to say, what's happening, how does it feel to be out there, what could we do to have a conversation, what kind of support could we give you, just so we balance both parts of it. Thank you. I hope that was a reasonable question.
Thank you very much. Would you like to respond?
Very proper. And happy, like all your good ideas on that side of the room, to pinch that idea and move it forward. Nice one.
Excellent. Any more comments, please? Thank you. We're now at the end of the debate on this proposal. So the recommendations is paragraph 1 to consider and approve the Chorley Economic Strategy for implementation. Can I see a show of hands for 4, please? Any against? Any abstentions?
It is subject to an amend, though, isn't it? Are we going to amend?
Oh,
You're going to include it in the... Right.
Happy to do it.
thanks for your collaboration. That's excellent. Can we move to item 11? Polling Station Review 2022. You can see details at page 77 to 80. This item is for noting. Councillor Wilson, please can you present this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you say, it's a report for noting. All members were consulted as usual, as we do annually when we do the polling station review. You can see from the report, Madam Mayor, that there was only, I think, 4 issues that were raised with polling stations in the borough, and as a consequence, only 1 change that we're proposing tonight, which is very simply that the St Chad's Parish Hall be brought back into use as it was previously done as a polling station. In the intervening period, we had the porter cabin Obviously, it's better if we have a physical building with the full use of the car park to support it. So I'm quite happy to make that proposal, Madam Mayor. And just for noting, of course, is the other minor changes such as signage, etc., which deals with some of the issues that were raised at the other 3 polling stations that are included in the report.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Bradley to second prior to the debate, please?
Delighted not to speak and just second that, Madam Mayor.
That's fine. Can I invite members to make any comments? Obviously, the details of the decision, obviously there's no change to polling stations' locations except for St Chad's Parish Hall, which will be used instead of a porter cabin, which returns the original approved recommendation at the council meeting held on the 16th of November 2021. Oh, right. Is there anyone with any comments? Can I see a show of hands then for 4th? This is just for noting. Any against? Any abstentions? Item 12. Questions asked under Council Procedure Rule 8, if any. And surprisingly tonight, there are no questions. So we swiftly move to item 13 to consider the notices of motion, if any, given in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 10. There are no notices of motion. So we're now at item 14, which is the exclusion of the public and press.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I propose that we exclude the public and press? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks for coming.
Seconded, Madam Mayor. Seconded.
Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
All in favour?
All in favour?
Thank you. Yeah.